Last time, Maya Sinclair sent a counteroffer that was not a negotiation. It was a declaration. Full disgorgement of two concealed financial entities. An unjust enrichment calculation built on years of research Daniel had taken without her knowledge. The family home. And a written acknowledgement, in the settlement document itself, that the paper he had placed in front of her 14 months ago had been altered after she signed it. Daniel's team had 48 hours to respond. And then, with 2 hours left on the clock, something none of Maya's team had seen coming landed in Sandra's office like a stone through still water. Vanessa Holt called. Not through an attorney, not through a representative. Vanessa herself, asking for a meeting, saying she had information Maya needed to hear, saying it was bigger than the money, saying she was ready to tell the truth. The question was, what truth? And could Maya trust the woman who had spent 14 months at the center of everything that had been done to her? There was only one way to find out. Before we go any further, take a second and hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because this community keeps showing up for Maya and for each other, and I want to know who is in this room with us right now. Let me know you're here. Sandra called Maya within minutes of Vanessa's call ending. She delivered the information the way she delivered everything, precisely without editorializing, giving Maya the facts and then the space to respond to them. Vanessa Holt contacted us directly. She asked for a meeting with you, not with me, with you. Within the next 24 hours. She said she has documentation, her word. She said she cannot go through Daniel's legal team because what she wants to share is something Daniel does not know she has. And she said... Sandra paused briefly in the way she paused when something had genuinely surprised her. She said that what she knows has nothing to do with protecting herself. She said she's past that. Maya was quiet for a moment. What's your read? Honestly, in 19 years I have had opposing parties contact me with offers to cooperate. Most of the time it is strategic. They're trying to get ahead of something, reposition themselves, reduce their own exposure. But the way Vanessa called, the things she said, the things she didn't say, felt different. She didn't ask for anything in return. She didn't mention immunity or consideration. She just said she needed Maya to know something. Do you think she's telling the truth? I think she believes she is, Sandra said. What I don't know yet is whether what she believes is accurate. That's what the meeting is for. Maya thought about it. The woman she had never met, whose name she had first learned from a message thread on a borrowed laptop in her own kitchen, who had co-founded a company with Maya's husband using assets that had come, at least in part, from Maya's marriage. She had every reason to say no to this meeting. She had one very important reason to say yes. Set it up, Maya said. Tomorrow morning, your office. You're in the room. Vanessa Holt arrived exactly on time. Maya had not known what to expect. She had built a loose image from the facts. 32 years old, senior analyst, co-founder of Meridian, 14 months of a relationship with a man who was building deceptions in multiple directions simultaneously. She had tried not to construct a story around those facts because she had learned, over the course of the past several weeks, that the facts in this situation kept expanding beyond the stories she built around them. Vanessa was composed in the way of someone who has made a decision that cost them something and has decided to live with that cost fully. She was professionally dressed. She sat down across from Maya and Sandra without waiting to be invited and placed a folder on the table between them, with the deliberate care of someone who has rehearsed this moment and is committed to it. She looked at Maya directly. Thank you for agreeing to see me. I know you didn't have to. Maya looked back at her with the same steadiness she had brought to every room in the past several weeks. Tell me what you came to tell me. Vanessa opened the folder. I need to start 18 months ago, Vanessa said, because that's when I understood what Daniel actually was, not who he told me he was, not the version of himself he presented, what he actually was. She had met Daniel at a firm event 2 years ago. He had been charming in the way Maya already knew he could be. Specific about it, targeted. The kind of charming that made you feel seen in a way that was, she understood now, entirely constructed. They had begun talking about work, about investments, about the kind of financial structures that serious people in their field use to protect and grow assets efficiently. He had suggested Meridian as a joint venture. A consulting entity that would, he explained, allow them to take on private clients independently of their firm. A common enough arrangement in their industry, structured carefully to avoid conflicts. Vanessa had agreed. She had filed the paperwork. She had contributed capital. 3 months after Meridian was registered, Vanessa said, I started noticing discrepancies, small ones at first, transactions I hadn't authorized, capital movements I couldn't reconcile with the client agreements we had in place. I asked Daniel about them. He explained them away every time, reclassifications, timing differences, administrative adjustments. She paused. I believed him, for longer than I should have. Maya said nothing. She was listening the way she always listened, completely, filing everything. 8 months ago, Vanessa continued, I pulled the full Meridian transaction record independently, without telling Daniel. And what I found was that a significant portion of the capital in Meridian, capital that I believed had come from our joint contributions and client fees, had originated from a transfer out of DRS Capital, an entity I had never heard of, that had nothing to do with me or any agreement we had made. She looked at Maya. He funneled your marital assets through DRS Capital and then moved a portion of them into Meridian. He used our joint venture as a second layer of concealment. I was on the filing as co-founder, which means I was, without my knowledge, providing a layer of cover for what he had taken from you. Sandra leaned forward slightly. You didn't know the source of the capital. I did not. And when I found out, when I traced it back as far as I could trace it, I confronted him. The confrontation, Vanessa explained, had happened 7 months ago. In Daniel's office, after hours, with the door closed. Daniel had not denied it. He had not panicked. He had done something that Vanessa described with a particular flatness in her voice that told Maya it was still something she was processing. He had smiled. He told me it wasn't a problem, Vanessa said. He told me the money was effectively untraceable, that his wife had no idea her accounts existed in any meaningful legal sense, and that even if she did, she was not the type to do anything about it. She stopped. Those were his exact words. She is not the type to do anything about it. The room was very quiet. Maya felt something move through her that was not anger, and not satisfaction, and not grief. It was something more clarifying than any of those things. The specific, crystalline feeling of having a picture that had been slightly out of focus for a long time suddenly resolve into perfect sharpness. He had known exactly who she was. He had assessed her, and he had decided that her patience, her composure, her quiet, the things that were actually her greatest strengths, were evidence that she could be managed, that she would not act, that she was, in the most fundamental sense he could imagine, safe to underestimate. She had spent 30 years being underestimated. She had spent 8 of those years building the proof that every single person who had done it was wrong. She looked at Vanessa steadily. What did you do after that conversation? I ended the personal relationship immediately, and I started documenting everything. Before we go any further, I need to stop here, because what Vanessa just said in that room is something I want you to sit with. Daniel looked at Maya, at everything she was, and decided she was not the type to do anything about it. He saw her patience as passivity. He saw her quiet as absence. He mistook her discipline for limitation, and he built an entire structure of deception on that mistake. If you have ever been underestimated by someone who should have known better, someone who looked at your stillness and decided it meant you weren't paying attention, tell me in the comments. Because Maya was always paying attention. She just wasn't showing her hand. Vanessa reached into the folder and placed 3 documents on the table. The first was a transaction record, a full internal ledger of every movement in and out of Meridian Asset Group over its operating life. Every transfer, every source, every destination. The second was a series of emails between Daniel and a contact Vanessa identified as a private banking intermediary, a man named Curtis Webb, who operated out of a firm in the Cayman Islands and whose function in the email chain was unmistakably clear. He was helping Daniel structure the movement of capital in ways that minimized visibility and maximized deniability. Maya looked at the emails for a long moment. The language was careful, deliberately vague in the way of people who know exactly what they are doing and are deliberately not writing it plainly. But the meaning was clear to anyone who knew how to read it. And Maya, who had spent 8 years reading financial structures, read it in about 45 seconds. "This is wire fraud," she said quietly. Sandra looked up from the document. "Potentially, yes," she said. "If these transactions cross state lines, and given the Wyoming registration and the Cayman connection, they almost certainly did. This is no longer exclusively a civil matter." "There's a third document," Vanessa said. She placed it on the table separately, carefully, the way you place something that has weight. It was a personal bank statement, not a business account. Daniel's personal account, one that Maya had not known existed, that had not appeared in any of the forensic investigation's findings, because it was held under a variation of his middle name at a private bank that Priya had not yet reached in her search. The balance, as of 60 days ago, was just over $3 million. Maya looked at it, then at Sandra, then back at Vanessa. "How did you get this?" "He sent me a wire from it 7 months ago, before I ended things. I believe it was meant to ensure my cooperation, or my silence. I kept the confirmation." Vanessa's voice was very even. "I kept everything." Sandra called James Whitfield from her office while Vanessa and Maya sat across from each other in the brief, complicated quiet of two women who had arrived at the same table from very different directions. James arrived within the hour. He reviewed the documents with the focused speed of a man who had spent 2 decades doing exactly this kind of work, and who had, in that time, developed the ability to extract the essential information from a financial record faster than almost anyone Maya had ever watched work. When he looked up, his expression was the expression of a professional who has just confirmed something significant. "The personal account changes the total picture considerably," he said. "Combined with DRS Capital, Meridian, and the Cayman-connected transactions, we are looking at a concealed asset pool that is substantially larger than what we had previously identified. If the Cayman transactions are what they appear to be, the full exposure, civil and potentially criminal, is significant." "How significant?" Sandra asked. James looked at his notes, then at Maya. "We are no longer talking about a divorce settlement, Maya. We are talking about the kind of financial misconduct that federal investigators take an active interest in." Maya absorbed that. She had known, somewhere underneath everything, that the picture was going to keep expanding. She had felt it in the way Priya had said the word deeper, in the way Sandra's measured tone had shifted when she described Vanessa's call, in the particular quality of the silence in rooms where serious people were looking at serious things. She had built herself ready for what she could see, and she had always known, with the instinct of someone who understood how structures worked, that what she could see was probably not all of it. Now she was looking at all of it. Vanessa left Sandra's office 2 hours after arriving. Before she went, she stopped at the door and turned back to Maya. And the composure she had maintained through the entire meeting shifted, just barely, just enough to show the person underneath it. "I want you to know something," she said. "The things he said about you, that you weren't the type to do anything, that you wouldn't act. I didn't believe it even when he said it. I thought, whatever she's building, she knows what she's doing. I could tell from the research, from the positions, from the structure of the trust. I didn't know it was you, but I knew whoever it was not someone to underestimate." Maya looked at her for a long moment. "Thank you for coming," she said. "It took courage." Vanessa nodded, and then she left. Sandra closed the door and turned back to Maya with the particular expression of someone who has been practicing law for 19 years and has just watched something that reminded her why. "So," Sandra said, "where are we?" Maya looked at the 3 documents still on the table. The transaction records, the emails with Curtis Webb, the personal bank statement with $3 million in an account that had been hidden from her for the entirety of her marriage. "We are exactly where I built us to be," Maya said. "We just didn't know how far the ground went." That afternoon, Sandra filed a motion to expand the scope of the existing proceedings based on newly obtained documentary evidence. She also placed a call to a contact at the U.S. Attorney's Office. Not a report, not yet, but the kind of professional conversation between attorneys who have worked in the same legal ecosystem for years that ensures the right people are aware that something significant is developing. Daniel's attorney called Sandra's office at 4:58 that afternoon. The original settlement offer, the one Maya had countered with full disgorgement and a written acknowledgement of fraud, was no longer on the table. Not because Daniel's team was withdrawing from settlement discussions, because they were requesting an emergency meeting. Tomorrow morning. First thing. Sandra relayed the message to Maya. Emergency meeting, Maya said. He knows we have the Vanessa documents, or he suspects. His team is moving fast because fast is the only option they have left. What do you want to do? I want to meet, Maya said. And I want James in the room. That night, Maya sat at the desk in her temporary apartment, the one she had secured 2 months ago as a quiet piece of preparation. The one Daniel had not known about because Maya, who understood the value of having options before you needed them, had arranged it before she thought she would need it. She opened her laptop. She pulled up the portfolio summary for Sinclair Private Holdings. $6.8 million. Built over 8 years. Quietly, carefully, without a single person in her life knowing the full picture until she was ready to show it. She thought about her mother at the kitchen table. I have never thought of you as just a housewife. She thought about Vanessa in the chair across from her. Whoever it was not someone to underestimate. She thought about Daniel's words, reported secondhand, landing in the room with the particular damage of things that are said by people who believe no one is listening. She is not the type to do anything about it. She closed the portfolio summary. She opened a new document. At the top of the page, she typed 2 words and sat with them for a moment. She had titled the folder Next 8 months ago. She had known, in the bone-deep way of someone who had been preparing for a long time, that there was a version of her life waiting on the other side of all of this that had nothing to do with Daniel or his deceptions, or the careful, invisible existence she had built around surviving a marriage that had slowly, steadily, tried to erase her. There was a version of her life that was only hers. Entirely, completely, visibly hers. She was almost there. The emergency meeting was at 9 a.m. Sandra and James would be ready. The documents would be on the table. And Daniel Sinclair, who had looked at Maya and decided she was not the type to do anything about it, was going to sit across from her and finally, completely, understand his mistake. She saved the document, closed the laptop, went to bed. For the first time in longer than she could remember, she slept without anything unresolved sitting on her chest. And then, at 6:12 in the morning, her phone rang. Not Sandra, not Claire, not her mother. A number she did not recognize. Area code she didn't place immediately. She answered. The voice on the other end was male. Professional. Measured in a way that was different from an attorney's measured. More official, more deliberate, carrying the particular weight of institutional authority. Ms. Sinclair? My name is Agent Marcus Webb. I'm with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Division of the U.S. Attorney's Office. I apologize for the early hour. I've been briefed on your situation by your attorney's office, and I need to speak with you before your 9 o'clock meeting this morning. Maya sat up. I'm listening. Ms. Sinclair, the individual named Curtis Webb in the documentation your attorney recently obtained. I need you to know that Curtis Webb has been the subject of a federal investigation for the past 14 months, and Daniel Sinclair's connection to him is not new information to us. What is new, what your attorney's disclosure has provided, is a domestic paper trail that connects to transactions we have been tracking from the other direction. Maya was very still. What are you telling me? I'm telling you that the 9 o'clock meeting this morning may not go the way Daniel's team is expecting. And I'm telling you that the federal interest in this situation is active, real, and significantly larger than your civil proceedings. He paused. And Ms. Sinclair, I'm telling you that you are not a subject of this investigation. You are a material witness, and we would like your cooperation. The morning light was just beginning to come through the apartment window, thin and pale and new. Maya looked at it. When can we meet? She said. That is the end of part 5 of They Thought She Was Just a Housewife, until her fortune was revealed. and I need you to feel the full weight of where we are right now. Maya Sinclair started this story as the woman nobody saw, the one who packed the lunches and managed the calendar and smiled at the right moments in rooms full of people who never thought to ask what was behind the smile. And now she is sitting in a furnished apartment at 6 in the morning with a federal agent on the phone telling her that the man who said she was not the type to do anything about it has been on the radar of a federal investigation for over a year. He built a structure he thought was invisible. She built a structure that was actually invisible. And the difference between those two things is now sitting in the hands of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Tell me in the comments what you're feeling right now. Tell me what you think happens at that 9 o'clock meeting. Tell me what you think Daniel's face looks like when he realizes what is waiting for him in that room. I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. Like this video. Subscribe to Underestimated Saga so part 6 comes straight to you. And share this with someone who needs Maya's story today, because we are one episode away from the reckoning. And the woman they thought was just a housewife? She is walking into that room,